Good morning, and it is Wednesday, March the 3rd. Welcome to Cup of Faith. My name is John Moen, and I am very glad that you were able to join me today. Yesterday was Brenda's and my 42nd wedding anniversary, and lots of you sent greetings. We really appreciated it. It touched us, and it reminds me that we are journeying together, and I'm glad that we get to journey with you. When you hit a milestone like that, you reflect, and we reflect on our marriage, we reflect on our family, and I think in life generally. So I'm wondering how you have reflected on life and if it has turned out as well or less well than you originally thought. Life doesn't always turn out the way we dreamed it would. But I'd like to share with you a story that has deeply impacted me for the last 20 years, and very shortly you'll get the punchline, and then hopefully we'll have some relevant conclusions. For a number of years, Brenda and I worked in the inner city of Winnipeg with the homeless community, and to be frank, I think they touched and blessed us much more than we ever did them. They were amazing people, often needy, often desperate, and often full of faith, and always full of character. One February, actually January, it was bitterly cold, much like this cold snap we just had. And in the early days of our mission, we were in a tiny little converted restaurant, and it would seat about 54 people, I believe. So it would fill up very fast because there was estimated about 2,000 homeless people in the inner city of Winnipeg, and most of them First Nations. So obviously, when your seating capacity is 54, you can't seat everybody all at once. And what people would do is they would line up around the outside of the building. We never made a point of telling people they had to get up and leave. But on one particular day when it was so cold, I did mention to our patrons that because it was so cold, if they were done their meal, it would be appreciated if they could leave so that we would have room for more. And some got up and some didn't. One of the people that I noticed got up were one of my favorite couples. Their names were Jim and Cheryl. And Cheryl was completely incapacitated due to years of drug and solvent abuse, to the point that she was in a wheelchair and she could not move her limbs. She couldn't even feed herself. And her partner, Jim, took her everywhere. He pushed her in her wheelchair through the snowy streets of Winnipeg to their single room occupancy hotel room, kind of a Skid Row hotel. He fed her, he bathed her, he cared for her, he was with her 24/7. So Jim and Cheryl got up and left. And I noticed them leave, and I thought, they're probably going to go back to their Skid Row hotel room where they can at least be warm and sheltered. It's not a great place, it's not a safe place, but it was shelter. About 45 minutes later, Jim and Cheryl came back in. What they had done is they gave up their spots, their seats, so that other people could, and they went and they stood out in the bitterly cold winter in a long line until they could come back in again. They were heroes to me, that even as they were some of the most incapacitated people of the inner city, they would do something heroic as give up their seats for someone else. So it brings me to this point about us. Granted, for a lot of us, life has not turned out the way we thought it would. If you had stood in front of your school teacher when you were in grade 5 and said, "This is what I want to be when I grow up," I wonder how many of us are doing exactly that. I know the inner city poor and homeless never would have said, "I want to be a homeless person when I grow up." Sometimes life is not what we dream. But I want to leave you with two things, if I could. You are more than what you have or don't have. In Luke chapter 12, verse 15, it says that life does not consist of the abundance of things we possess. Don't let our things define us, and don't let them limit us. For this leads me into the second point. You are capable of great things no matter how well life has or hasn't turned out. Remember God's view of King David. See, God's view of potential is deeper than the outward man. For through the prophet Samuel, he said, man looks at the outside, but God looks at the inside. So I bless you today. I trust that as you go on and take on the world and do great exploits for God, that you will know you are not limited by what today has. But what you do have is the potential and the backing of God. So bless you today. And I proudly show off my new cup of faith. Enjoy yours.